Turn this mother up. Hey,
Yeah.
you're up.
I
Hi,
didn't do it. Are we live?
we're live.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great. The last hey, welcome to the West Smith Variety Show with today's trusty assistant, as always, Kelly, Agent 137 Ross, and
Hi.
today's guest, Eric Riggsbee, hanging out there. Where are you today, Eric?
I'm in Studio 10, otherwise known as where I live, but it's called Studio 10. I'm in Oakland, California.
Cool, man.
Nice speaking style.
Uh-oh.
Oh, the circuit band?
Hi for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a fun toy.
Oh, where'd you go?
I'm still here.
All right. I think we lost Wes. Just
Oh,
kidding.
everybody's still there. Everybody's still there. Cool. I am today. Yeah, man. So the studio rocking out. Do you have air conditioning? That's my question for both of you. Do you have air conditioning today?
I do not have air conditioning. Air conditioning is quite the luxury in Oakland, only because we're so close to the bay that we only get a couple of really hot weeks a year. So it's not really built into the design in Oakland too much, but it's starting to get pretty hot here. So I think I know how you feel.
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in just a minute, I guess. So today, real quick, Eric, we just started kind of rolling. Usually, I have a couple like announcements and some things, and I figured I'd just do those, while you're live and we're all live anyway. So, a couple things real quick. I'm actually sitting in, hopefully I pronounce it right, Yakima, Washington, and I'm on my way to the Electric Love Music Festival in Canada. So that's why I asked the air conditioning thing, because I think it's like 105 here right now, man. And I've been camping along the way, as you may know or have seen some stuff, or Kelly might have told you. But I have a proper AC. So it's like an internal air conditioner solution. But anyway, Electric Love Music Festival is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Camping extravaganza. Go check out their website, my website. You can find all the info if you're in Canada or nearby and want to go check it out. It's gonna be awesome. Crafty Cuts, Jay Flip, me, Slink, a whole bunch of 5 different stages: a hip hop stage, EDM kind of, EDM umbrella stage, like a pop rock band type stage. So like 5 stages, and then all the typical kind of stuff that goes with that in camping. So that's that deal. The other thing I have announcement-wise is coming out on Monday is my next release, and it is entitled Super Bass. And so far, getting great feedback from everybody on Mars. And that's it. So, Eric, man, back to you, dude.
Yeah.
That's all the big fancy announcements. But speaking of that, do you have any announcements? I don't know. You got anything coming up? Any shows?
We do, absolutely. This Saturday in San Francisco at Underground SF, we are having another Faultline party, and this one we're featuring Yano. And Yano is, in the Bay Area, the guy's a legend. He's been around for 25 plus years, and he's part of the Wicked crew. And this guy goes way back. Guy goes way back to the era of, when it was like house and breaks, and it was kind of all blend together, and nobody really classified themselves as what genre they did, and they just kind of went out there and had fun with it, right? And then eventually a lot of these guys kind of stuck with house, right? They kind of went through it, and over time they might mix a breaks or two, right? But so he's coming for us. He's gonna play a 2-hour break set, and we're
cool
about that. He's gonna play a lot of old classics. I'm sure he's gonna play some new stuff. So we're looking forward to that. And that's on Saturday, Underground SF in San Francisco.
Oh, cool. So that I guess that merits a how did I meet Eric, or how did we meet each other kind of thing. I guess you knew me through music for a bit, but then really first time we met in person was at your Faultline party, right?
Yeah, 4th of July 2014.
Oh yeah. Right.
We all met each other.
We all met each other then, and there was a barbecue.
Yeah,
and,
that was we thought of what's a better way to celebrate America's birthday than having Wes Smith come out. We lose him.
I think so. I was like,
He's so taken back by what I just said.
he was like, that was
I
awesome.
can't believe it.
Yeah, that was great. We all played. I got to tag with 138, so 137 versus 138. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We all met each other at the same time on that. That was a good time.
I think he's just frozen in time. Wes, close your windows. Go out. Come back in.
Anyway, that was back when we were over in Oakland at Lounge 3411.
3411. So why did you switch venues? I know you were in Oakland for a long time.
So we were there for about a year and a half. Went to another venue, which we consider kind of our teenage years.
Okay.
We were like the awkward teenage years. We were like, okay, maybe we'll get out downtown. Didn't really work out for us, best as we thought. And then the opportunity opened up at Underground SF in San Francisco, and the place is legendary in the sense it used to be called the Top. Yano used to play there back in the day. It used to be a hotspot for, and it still is, a hotspot for multiple different types of music: techno, drum and bass. There's a drum and bass party there that happens every other Tuesday. There's techno nights all the time, house nights. We do our breaks thing there, so it's a great spot for different types of formats on different nights.
Is that something that you're doing on a monthly basis, or what's the?
Oh, right. So Faultline was monthly.
Yeah.
It was monthly for a long time, and then when we went to Underground SF, it became Fifth Saturdays. Because they're booked out. I mean, they're really booked out, and the first thing that opened up was Fifth Saturdays. They said, we'll take it. So it ends up being every couple of months.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would love to come out and see one of those in San Francisco. I know you had a lot of people come out to Oakland from DC. That whole entire party that we had, pretty much everyone had, like, people that lived in DC at one point and now live in San Francisco.
Right. There's a lot of people that know Wes and you and all this stuff that kind of happened, and I didn't really understand it until we met there that night.
Yeah. A lot of people there.
There's people that Wes went to college with in Florida, Kieta, that we know, right? So, like, he gave me some background. He was sending me some photos of Wes when he had hair, all this kind of stuff. And I was hearing all these DC stories, and my friends from DC were talking about Wes and all this stuff. And it was like, okay. And I'm from the Bay Area. I never really moved around. So it was really cool to see all those connections happen that night.
That's cool. How did you get together? How did Faultline start?
Hey, I'm back.
Hey, we've been going on without you. Welcome back.
We should brief you.
I'm back. Carry on.
We'll brief you on what happened.
We'll brief you.
We're going through Faultline. We're going through venue changes. I think that's where we were, right?
You want to mention who you do that with?
It's almost like Kelly can read my mind sometimes.
Right, so Faultline is a partnership with myself and two other DJs, DJ Justin Johnson and DJ 138. These guys are both veterans in the scene. Justin runs, last time I counted, it was 4 record labels. He's primarily known for Barely Legal Records for his break stuff, so you can find that on Beatport. I'm sure all the other venues for digital music, you can find Barely Legal Records that way. So we kind of all came together in 2014 because, and I heard some of the same ideas gone through on some of the other podcasts of yours, that it was kind of that time when breaks had kind of dipped a little bit, and we were like, look, let's bring this together. There's a lot of really cool Burning Man crews around here that like breaks, but it seems like some of it's maybe sporadic and at different events. So let's kind of make a breaks-focused thing, do it as a monthly, and bring in guests from all the crews in the Bay Area and just have good music and have a great party. I mean, it was a pretty simple premise.
Yeah, and I think, I definitely had a good time there, and a good bit of time has gone past. But that was awesome, man. That was my first Bay Area performance.
Nice.
Me too.
So I always have yeah, man. And I've been back a couple times, but yeah, that was awesome. And I know you guys have obviously done a range of size and types of guests or whatever. So it's pretty cool that you guys are doing that there, because is there really anything else that's I know you yourself do music beyond, say, for example, just breakbeat, but that party's pretty focused on breaks. And is there anyone else that kind of has a breaks focused monthly like that going in the Bay Area, or are you guys kind of the mainstay right now?
I would say we're really the only ones that I'd say brand it that way, kind of focus it that way. But there's plenty of crews that if you go to their party, you're going to hear mostly breaks. I mean, there's Space Cowboys, Dusty Rhino, Strategic, and these are crews that are heavily focused in the breaks realm as well. So we weren't trying to take anything away from that. We were just trying to add to the pie, and we love pulling those DJs from those different groups and kind of doing our thing.
Cool, man. So hey, one other thing on that note is, and you may have said this when I dropped out, but any of your own personal like DJ website stuff, like how can people find you, and so if they're chilling listening to our nonsense and they just want to go hear your music or something, they can do that too.
I've got the list.
Do it, man. Reel them off.
Okay.
I'll have some tea.
You take a drink. I've got a bunch here. Okay.
Great.
Faultlinebreaks.com. That's our website. You can find out the general information, sign up for the email list. You'll get an email when we're having parties. There's some music links in there. We also have links for every single DJ that has played for us, and it'll link to their SoundCloud. So you can see the list of all the people that we've had out. Facebook.com/DJ Eric Riggsbee. Instagram.com/Eric Riggsbee. Twitter.com/Eric Riggsbee. Mixcloud.com/Eric Riggsbee. SoundCloud.com. Wait, SoundCloud still? Yeah, they're still up, right? Okay, SoundCloud.com/Eric Riggsbee. And a couple years.
Why don't you have ericriggsbee.com, or do you?
Okay, that's a long story, man. I had that website, and then I think some 14-year-old kid, he bought it, and now he won't give it back to me. So it's in a legal dispute right now. It's tied up in the courts. Hopefully soon we'll have ericriggsbee.com.
Tied up in the courts. You got bojangled, dude. You got bojangled by a teenager.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that guy. And then Bay Area Breaks. We started this a couple years ago too. It's a Facebook group, Bay Area Breaks. It's a good resource to hear about any breaks parties, any breaks mixes, or we sometimes put breakdancing like events and things like that. So it's all Bay Area focused for those types.
Oh yeah, I've seen a few of those. Yeah, you don't breakdance, do you?
Not well. No. I do some good groundwork. I do some good groundwork, but it's not the break. It's not that kind of breaking. It's a little different. We can get into that later.
Yeah, I just break things when I dance. Hey, speaking of domain names, one thing I was going to also mention today. Speaking of domain names, it was like you're reeling off a nice marketing list, and that it's good that you have. It's like cool. Anytime anybody, try to make it simple for everybody. Just sort of go to whatever social media thing you're into, and then type in that same thing. To find your favorite artist, Eric Riggsbee, for example. And I'm doing a little show next week. I think sometime maybe later next week. Not here for Variety ShYo, but for somebody else. I don't know if I'm supposed to announce it yet or not. So, but anyway, it's going to be on marketing and those kind of things. They wanted me to come do that and just talk about my experience with it. So I'll use you as an example, Eric, to be like try to get it close to like that guy with all the handles being similar. It's really important. Yeah.
Yeah.
To make that kind of stuff easy and search and all that. But I'll talk more about that next week, though, on that thing where they're strictly talking about all that jazz. But speaking of other podcasts, so I've been driving, like a lot over the last week. I think I've covered like 1,400 miles now, and and that's just the point to point, not like all the stuff I've been doing in between. It leaves me a lot of time to listen to podcasts, dude. So I've listened to like tons of Radio Lab, tons of How Stuff Works, Joe Rogan Experience, all these things. And the last one I was listening to was a Rogan one with Brendan Schaub on there. And I don't know if you listened to that one or not, but I know you're an MMA fan, among other things. So I'm interested in that. Is something I have not taken a lot of time to talk to you about.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one. I do listen to Joe Rogan from time to time. Yeah, I'm pretty big into MMA. I guess you could say that. I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now for a little over 10 years. So I have I have my brown belt at Ralph Gracie in Berkeley, California. Give, I guess, people an idea of kind of the belt ranks. There's 5 belt ranks in Jiu-Jitsu. It goes white, blue, purple, brown, black. So I'm at brown belt. I like to teach at the academy. It's just a nice different break from the music thing that I've been into for a long time.
I believe he's missing it right now for you, Wes.
Yeah, well, totally appreciate it, man, because I know it's probably like one of those things you look forward to. Like, how often do you go to train?
3 to 4 days a week.
Okay, so that's like serious chunk of your what I would say is free time probably versus.
Yeah, it's about an hour and a half.
Other responsibilities.
Yeah, hour and a half class each time we go. So yeah.
So what is that jiu-jitsu in general? The way I learned anything about it, and I don't practice it, so I don't mean learn in the sense of practicing it, but the way I got exposed to it was through martial arts and MMA, and then a lot more so I guess through watching UFC and in that promotion and whatnot. But it seems like, where's the origin actually? So I think you practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So that tells me there's more than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. What's the scoop on like kinds of Jiu-Jitsu?
Right. So quick breakdown on it. Jiu-Jitsu originated in Japan. Originally, it's got a lot more deadly aspects to it. It's more of a self-defense system. Has some weaponry involved. There's actual weaponry tactics. What was happening was the people that were training in it wouldn't really be able to train on the regular. They'd go in, they train, okay, you got to heal for 2 or 3 weeks, type of thing. Okay. So what happened was the sport judo came around, and what judo was kind of like a simplified, streamlined, stand-up-ish version filtered out of jiu-jitsu, okay? So now you have the sport of judo, okay, which actually is the second biggest sport in the world. A lot of people don't know that. Number 1, I'm sure everyone knows soccer, football, right? Soccer. But number 2 is judo. It's practiced on many, many countries, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yes, I did not know that. Huh.
So I'm gonna mispronounce the guy's name, but a gentleman, a judoka from Japan, moved to Brazil, and what he did is when he was trying to get his start there, he met the Gracie family, okay? And the Gracie family helped him kind of get his start there, and in exchange for that, he started teaching the family some of the judo, but some of these ancient jiu-jitsu techniques that were kind of, some were lost or some were kind of hybridized into judo. So what the Gracies did is they took some of the jiu-jitsu, they took some of the judo, and they really focused it as a ground sport because they realized that you need the ground's leverage to be able to control a larger opponent. So if I weigh 162 pounds, if I'm trying to control a guy, I'm trying to control someone who's 240 pounds, 250 pounds. I can only do that on the ground, unless I'm up against a wall or something. But if I'm in an open space, the only way I'm able to do this is on the ground. So the Gracies kind of realized that, and they turned this into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And that's been evolving now for the last almost 100 years. So when you hear the phrase Jiu-Jitsu now, it's almost been replaced with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's like when they say, okay, his Jiu-Jitsu is good, they're referring to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now it's almost like the flip. You got to actually say, okay, Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, the original stuff. But so that's kind of the way it worked out, kind of evolved that way.
That's cool.
Because I guess, I haven't paid close attention. Maybe I'll pay closer attention. But most of the time, I think when they've got a jiu-jitsu skill set, like a UFC fighter, they're doing tail of the tape and whatnot. It's they pretty much specify Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I guess that has real big strongholds in, you know, in the versus the Japanese origins. I guess
Right.
that has
Yeah, you're
strongholds.
hear more people recognizing it. That's good.
Yeah. So that's and I actually, because I was a fan of BJ Penn, which which goes back to how I got into watching UFC in the first place through a girlfriend at the time who was born and raised in Hawaii. So of course she was a huge BJ Penn fan, and and I used to as a novice get BJ Penn and BJJ. I would goof around and mix that up, and she didn't think it was all that funny.
Yeah, no, well, I love BJ Penn. Actually, BJ Penn, when he was in Hawaii, he came to the Bay Area and started training under Ralph Gracie, who I train at now. So BJ Penn went through most of his ranks at the same, not the exact same building, but under the same instructor lineage.
Yeah, because that makes a huge difference, right? I mean, like, it's like quality of instruction and quality of, which in turn is also, I guess, quality of the, or credibility of the belt and the ranking system itself to a degree, isn't it?
Right, absolutely, but he is absolutely the prodigy. I mean, his nickname, BJ Penn, the prodigy, I mean, he got his black belt in 4 years. I'm sure he had the luxury of training a lot, but, man, even if you train a lot, 8 years is probably the quickest you could do it. 7, 8 years, and for him to do it in 4, that says a lot. So, yeah, he's. You know,
I'm also a fan of the Diaz brothers, fighting Diaz brothers. In case there's another group of them, and they're pretty close to your neck of the woods, man. Do you ever see either of them? Because I think they're both black belts in BJJ, right?
You'd be surprised. Okay, so they're from Stockton, right? Which is somewhat far from Oakland.
Yeah.
It's still great Bay Area, right? But I've seen both those guys at jiu-jitsu tournaments. So.
Well, that's how I met him, dude. That's how I met him in a triathlon. Like, that's how I met him in person. That was before I really knew a lot about them in MMA. I mean, I knew they were there, but I didn't really I was following BJ at the time, you know. And then I met those dudes at a triathlon.
Right, and you know how those events are. I mean, they're a lot less showy than like an MMA show or a big rave, right? Where it's like everyone's just kind of like, oh yeah, I'm doing my race today, and I got my, maybe I got my supporters here. But so it's really accessible. I mean, jiu-jitsu tournaments the same way.
There's like 10, yeah, like if there was 500 people throughout the different, groups in a triathlon on, the couple times I met them at those events, like let's say there was 500, contestants. There might be like 5 that are pro, that are there for money, kind of, the prizes. And the crazy part is that the times I met them, I wasn't competing in the same brackets they were, like open, and I was actually volunteering. I would run the sprints. So I was actually volunteering, like on Bike Exchange and stuff like that. So that's how I would meet them and see them, and I'd keep seeing them going in circles, on the laps and on the stuff. And they would podium like third. Like I think they podiumed like every time I saw them. And these were like events with, I don't know, 5 contestants. Athlon. I mean, there's definitely other things that are also challenging physically, but doing an Olympic distance or greater triathlon is a serious business, man. To podium in that.
Yeah, and I mean, part of the reason they do that is because cardio is one of the greatest weapons you can have. I mean, there's not a worse feeling when you're competing with someone in some sort of competition where it's 2 people, where you gas out and you feel the other person is still going, right? And you're just tired, right? Like you want to keep going, but you just can't. You're tired. That's a horrible feeling. So, I mean, these guys
vomit. You're like the vomit exhaustion level.
Right. So, I mean, they prep with these marathons. These things are intense, and then they go into the MMA. Do 5 rounds in MMA, and that's, as far as cardio, that's nothing. I feel like for these guys. So
yeah, they may not look like they may not always look the flashiest or whatever. I mean, their skill set is clearly documented. There's no doubt about that. But they. But it is the one, and they may not always win, but one of the funniest things, man, is you're right. Like they never look tired. They're always like, man, can we go like 5 more rounds?
Right, exactly. And I love those guys. I mean, you know, there's two ways to look at it. The whole like respect your opponent thing, and then there's the show aspect, right? And I feel like if in jiu-jitsu, it's a little bit less about psyching up the guy. You know, you go out in a tournament and you just see, oh, hey, this is the guy I'm facing today. Hey, shake hands. Okay, nice to meet you. Okay, let's have a good match. But when these things have like millions of dollars behind it, millions of dollars behind it, and there's like hype and video, and I mean, Muhammad Ali showed us how to do it, right? So I feel like,
I feel like that's true. And Conor,
yeah, a little bit of that, right?
Page out of that book. Yeah. Well, those guys never struck me as, you know, like the Diaz brothers. I mean, they never really, and they still don't, even when you see them in press conferences, like they don't really strike you as like really wanting to, you know, be skilled at press conference, you know, warfare.
Well, especially,
right? I mean,
Nick, especially Nick, the older brother, he hates it, I think.
Yeah.
Can't be bothered by it. I mean, I think that he's been pulled from fights because he didn't show up to a big press conference before, so.
He did, yeah, he did. Well, so did Conor. Conor McGregor did too, which was the irony, because he seems to enjoy them so much, and that's why he didn't fight at UFC 200, because he didn't show up to that press conference.
Right, that's
and so they moved him, which if you're MMA people, probably couldn't have worked out. You know, because I don't know how they do all of the divvying up of the money and whatever, but he's clearly at the pay-per-view, you know, sharing level now, and so, you know, to get, I would think to get another headline event, especially with this much more interest around it, and not really have to share that with much undergoing on that week, I would think that's a benefit.
Right.
You know, coming up purely from the money side of things.
Right.
Speaking of which, it was funny you were talking about the popularity of sports. These guys, I was in Bend, Oregon last night at this Sun River Brewing place, really neat little craft brew place, and these guys, I struck up a conversation with these guys that they cut, they're like grow farmers, but they go and help the medicinal marijuana farm people, cut their harvest.
Right.
So we were talking about most popular sports in the world, and that came up. When you said that, I was laughing because we had that exact discussion last night, and I bet that, or a shot, I think, of tequila, that the NFL was the largest revenue-making sport in the world. And they weren't having it because there was I guess some of the championship soccer was on, football.
Right.
It was on last night, and as it is, NFL is like a $13 billion a year business.
And they have a pretty short season too.
Yeah, dude, it's all about. But it's crazy because these guys were Australian. Yeah, these guys were Australian, so they couldn't care less about American football. In fact, you know, they're more in the camp of sports enthusiasts, American, like a kind of a joke, you know, like running around in costumes and whatnot. So they were that it was the, you know, like by like 10 times it in terms of the money part of it, it's like 10 to 15 times what soccer, football is.
Sure.
At least with the information we could find. But anyway, fact for you. Maybe. So I think that's right, but that's what we were able to find online. Anyway, so on the fighting stuff, then how long? You said 10 years it's been for you to get to where you're at.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, I think I got into it probably the same way you learned about it. I mean, through MMA. It's funny. I remember my brother bringing home the first.
Oh, really?
My brother bringing home the first UFC VHS tape. Okay, and my brother's about 2 years younger than me. We're pretty close in age, and I think it was when Blockbuster Video was like liquidating all of their VHS tapes, and they were starting to get like DVDs, and they had these bins where it was like you buy all these like old, you know, WWF wrestling tapes or UFC tapes, right? So we snatched up like the first like 10 of these, right? And we were getting them, like we got the first couple as they were coming out. So we saw, I think the first UFC was in 93. We saw, I think by 94 or 95 we were able to get these videos, and we just fell in love with it. I mean, we watched these things over and over and over, and then, you know, Hoist Gracie was in the first 5. He won number 1, number 2. Had a crazy battle in 3, couldn't go on because of exhaustion, and then won 4 and 5. So I mean, it was the best infomercial for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu you could ever ask for. So I remember in my mind that stuck with me. I'm like,
oh yeah,
this is amazing, because at that time, you know, I'm like a teenager, and you know, ninjas were really big in the 80s and 90s, and like, you know, all of that, all those great kind of, you know, Rocky and martial arts and all this different types of martial art things. So as a kid, I was always really into that and seeing some Bruce Lee films, Chuck Norris, all that. But then once I saw Hoist Gracie and what he did, I was like just blown away by. I had no idea you could even do something on the ground. To me,
I guess,
you know, and
it's not intuitive, I guess, until you
it's
see
not
it.
intuitive. And as a kid, I'd seen enough street brawls and things in the suburbs of the Bay Area, as tough as they got. And it was, man, you didn't even throw a kick.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you threw a kick at someone, like you were a wimp. Like you were basically supposed to use your hands, right? So the idea of even going to the ground on purpose, unless you had some sort of wrestling background, which I'm sure most people didn't think about back then, was just
right.
Just kind of forced.
Tank Abbott? You mean Tank Abbott? With
yeah,
340-pound Tank Abbott wasn't thinking about wrestling? No, I'm pretty sure he was just going to
go down after science
squeeze
class.
you to death, punch you, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, those are some classics. If anybody wants to see what the UFC came from, like go back and watch some of those. Like Tank Abbott was just one name that popped to mind. Frank Shamrock, like who were a couple of those other early dudes? Like obviously Hoist Gracie was back there, which is what you were talking about. But
it was Dan Severn. There's also who's some of the other
Dan Severn.
Severn dominated
early UFC guys. Boss Rutan.
Boss Rutan as a personality.
So, dudes,
you've seen the videos where it's his self-defense videos, but then people have like re-edited his self-defense videos, so he's like in there saying like, you give them a left and you give them a right and the bada da bada da bada da bing, and then people are like remixing it and doing like the Boss Rutan remixes. The bada da bada da bing. It's so good.
It sounds like something that would work really well with Matt Serra. You could get Matt Serra to do that. Those dudes now are like either sadly they've got some kind of mental issues from all of the fighting, which is apparently pretty common, or they're like like Randy Couture, like starring in the Expendables with an A-Team and things like that. It's pretty interesting what sort of the chaos that all that used to be, and kind of where the some of the where are they now stories are. They're pretty interesting, and I feel like now like it's more structured, and it'll probably get even more structured now that it got sold. How crazy was that number?
Oh right, yeah, and I was just thinking that actually about the whole selling thing. I can't believe it. Has that actually switched yet, or is that? I know it happened, but I don't know when the actual transition takes place.
There's clearance type stuff. Yeah, but it's been in UFC and Dane and everybody, so it's not. I don't think the reason it won't go. I mean, it's just so.
I think as long as Joe Rogan is safe, I'm happy.
UFC's all private, so. Yeah, well, I was listening to one of the old shows on the drive. It tells you how many things I've listened to, because like I'm going back on the like archives of the Joe Rogan Experience and radio weapons. And yeah, he was talking to somebody, I forget if it was like a retired or ex Baltimore policeman. That was a pretty interesting episode. And yeah, he was talking about just his doing commentary, UFC, like knowing he's doing anywhere else ever, that kind of thing. So I think as long as he and Dana are friends, I think that's good.
Right, because Dana's
he also had a good point. Yeah, 5 years or something like that. But he also had a really good point that, which I totally would agree with, is like there aren't very many people that have his knowledge, right? So he loves doing it, and that you can clearly tell, and I enjoy it, and you enjoy it. You know, it's a big part of it for me, how I've learned a lot of stuff. You know, he really knows his business, so.
He's one of the best commentators in the business. I mean, the guy's got a Taekwondo background. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's also a black belt in 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which is, without having to really get into it, it's the whole Eddie Bravo, gi-less Jiu-Jitsu, which is a lot more kind of wrestling-based. So the guy knows his stuff. I mean, and you really have to be able to call this type of sport. So they should pay him what he deserves. And,
oh yeah, I can only imagine at that level. Like, it seems easy, but you'll be all like, you know, it's hard to pay attention and keep things moving like that, and you know, like whatever. But those guys are like natural at it, like Joe. And what have they been doing it for like 12, 15 years, something like that?
You know, it's funny.
Crazy.
The old UFC videos, right? It used to be like they'd have main commentators, and Joe Rogan was the guy that was like backstage. You know what I mean? Like the guy with the mic. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm here with Dan Severn right now. Dan, how do you feel going into the second round?" You know, type of thing. And he was just like this scrawny little guy with like, he still had hair back then. He was coming off of like news radio. I don't know if many people remember him because he was from news radio.
I vaguely remember that, but mostly I knew him from Fear Factor, which I think is what most people.
I didn't really follow him on Fear Factor. It wasn't really a show I followed, but he came from news radio. So when I started seeing him in the UFC stuff, I'm like, oh, it's the news radio guy. Then I learned, okay, he's got a background in Taekwondo, does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, like this guy knows what's up. So, not to mention he's probably one of the most, you know, well-spoken people in the world as far as.
Oh, that guy has created it for life. It's bad. Just in a situation like that where they are really enjoying what they're doing and all that stuff. But yeah, and on the jiu-jitsu thing, like I'm also curious. I got to basic like Aikido, which seems to be like a went into judo. They know, but it leans more towards that than like striking. Right? It's like the using opponent's energy thing. But I only did it for like 6 months, and it never really. I don't know. Just practicing the martial arts. There's a lot of variables, I'm sure, but it just was never really something that I got like passionate about. But obviously you are with jiu-jitsu, and I'm curious like how that affects other, you know, people say that martial arts is probably the best things for kids and people to get to, just to learn a lot, much less than what. I mean, has that helped out for you, or?
Absolutely. I mean, it keeps me grounded. It keeps me, as I was getting through the ranks, okay, hey, I could stay out till 5, but you know, it's going to be a lot harder on Monday when we go train when this 23-year-old wrestler kid wants to train with me again, and I'm still, you know, tired from being out at the clubs all night. So it gives me kind of like that checks and balances in my mind, right? I'm always kind of, I guess, battling the party jiu-jitsu, right? So I think it helps with that. However, you know, it helps you keep looking at everything like it's not like a fight, but like you're going through life, and it's like, okay, this is the next challenge, right? This moment right now. I mean, in this moment, I'm dealing with a challenge, right? And I can get through this, right? And it really helps with those moments. And patience is probably the biggest thing. I was not a very patient person before I started jiu-jitsu, and depending on who
you're an architect, aren't you? An architect?
Yeah, that's one of the things I do. That's my day job.
Well, no, I was curious. I mean, I've been in Texas for ever, but I was just curious. We should make that more. But I would imagine that requires a lot of it.
Yeah, you're cutting out there for a minute. Can you say that last part again, Wes?
Yeah, Wes, you're pretty choppy.
Oh, I was saying that I would imagine that requires a lot of patience.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what made me think of it when you said that.
I think what I'm drawn to is I'm drawn to activities that are highly demoralizing.
What?
You know, because you know when I went to school for architecture, all it was you'd present your design, you'd go up for a critique, and you'd have a panel of architects that would just destroy you. And you go to jiu-jitsu and you're training with people that are much better than you, and you're getting beat up, and then you come back. You keep coming back, right? So I don't know. I think it's kind of a personality trait. Maybe I just realized that that's part of me, and maybe I try and overachieve and try and find things that are lifelong schooling, where architecture and jiu-jitsu are the types of things that I feel like take a long time to master. So
no doubt, man. It's like
I
architecture is
feel like I'm close to mastering either.
Discipline.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know. I can't remember if we ever talked about it or not. But when I went to college, I got a degree in construction engineering. So have we ever talked about that? Or
we did. We talked about it.
Talked much about those kinds
we had we had tequila that night. I remember we had tacos on the beach.
And watched the fights, right? And watched the fights over there.
Remember tacos on the beach?
I remember tacos on the beach, but we went and watched the fights at the sister restaurant at Cabo Cantina.
No, but yeah. we'll do it for the fans. You should reiterate for the fans.
One of the most important dinners of my life, Eric, was tacos with you and friends.
I remember you and I were blown away by this DJ that was doing like video DJ, and at the same time we were like blown away. He was like mixing video and mashups and stuff. We're like, oh my God, MC Hammer!
Well,
MC Hammer's dancing with Lionel Richie. What's going on here?
That's a required. For anybody who DJ. I had a stint where I did city. I had what would be called open format. It was primarily hip hop, but people would probably generally in DJ world would probably refer to it as open format. Just playing lots of stuff, right? And that DJ, that's a video DJ or whatever they call it, is that's a required skill, man. If you're going to get paid the good money to do open format DJing nowadays, I think, because all the places have it, especially like in the beach areas in California. I mean, it's really common.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about DJing too. Is there's so many different ways you can go
skill set.
I look at that like that's a whole different skill set from what I'm trying to do, and I look at that like that's amazing. Trying to do the mashups and the video stuff, I'm just in awe of that type of thing because it's so different, I think, from the kind of DJing that I like to do. That I really appreciate it. It just seems so hard because the knowledge base of that is so deep in a different way.
Well, on that note, how would you describe a DJ like to do?
All right, say that one more time. I need to get this one.
I'm the one with the bandwidth issues today, ironically, but trailer life. But yeah, how would you characterize the kind of DJing you like to do? Like you mentioned that a few times, so I can probably talk more about open format kind of stuff and scratch DJing. But I'm curious how you characterize your interest in DJing.
I'm more of the the mixing type of DJ, and I think scratching is a skill that I wish I learned when I was doing a lot of vinyl back in the day. That's something that I kind of wish I had learned a little bit better. But yeah, I do the basic kind of mixing DJ stuff. But I like to look at it from the standpoint of like the old school, where it was about taking someone on a journey. I've been hearing this a lot.
Yeah, but you beat match though too, right? You beat match.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, beat matching, right? Long.
Well, I know it's almost funny that I have to say that. Like between you and I wouldn't have expected any other answer.
That's a
to
given.
that question. Well, yeah, right. Between you and I and Kelly, but my point is, there's a lot of. I'm not kidding you, man. There's a lot of shows I play. And like you and I and Kelly, like in DJ circles or producer circles, we see commentary about things from a certain perspective, and it's in almost all of those debates, it's understood that this beat matching concept is one of the ways you would do that. But I'm telling you, man, when I go, like, the younger crowds especially, and at this point that's like under maybe 25, I'd say, if they don't DJ or know somebody that DJs, they definitely are not aware of the concept of, in many cases, that this beat matching thing is even existed, much less that it's still necessary.
That blows me away. I mean, it doesn't surprise me though. At the same time, I even feel bad sometimes that they show the BPM readout on the CDJs. I'm like, oh man, bummer. Could you remove that feature? I mean,
yeah, that's self-deprecating right there, isn't it? When you find yourself looking at it and you're like, why am I doing that?
But at the same time, it's like I'm all about, like, okay, well, the technology is allowing me now to see that, so it's a double-edged sword, It really
well,
is.
it's funny. I don't know, So you said you're, when you say traditional, I'm just re-explaining for anyone that would have no idea what that is. That we're talking about taking, two songs that are different tempos and then, by ear matching the key and the tempo and doing a mix versus, stopping and starting on an iPod or your music library or whatever, like having some machine do it for you, basically, right? It was funny. Last night I met. So here's a perfect example. So on my right was these guys that were from the grower cutting place, and then on my left, we're all sitting at the bar, is these two gals, and the one sitting right next to me was, we were just talking about what each other do, and when I was talking DJing and whatnot, it was funny, her question, I didn't really say the DJing part, I just said, I was talking about music in general at first and making music, and then she's like, oh, do you classify yourself as making it with machines or with instruments? Like, that's in her mind. So that's like the light conversation that's what most people think. That's maybe what they realize, if anything, is like, oh, okay, so do you entertain the crowd with machines, or do you entertain the crowd by playing an instrument, and meaning in a traditional guitar or singing or whatever way, right?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not as deep as it gets, man.
No, and that we can get even deeper, because that, I feel like, that's a conversation in itself. I'm traditionally, when I say traditionally, before DJing, I play the drums. I've been playing the drums now for 27 years. And
that's right. I forgot about that.
That's what got me into breaks. I'm a drummer, and okay, so without getting too deep into the progression of it, to bring it back to do you play, is it computer or is it live, right, or is it real instruments? I sometimes
go deep.
Well, I sometimes feel guilty as a performer, because I've always had a drum set to play behind, right? And in and of itself, the drums are pretty. It's a spectacle instrument to watch, right? It's a fun instrument to watch for people that play the drums. Fun instrument to watch people who don't really know anything about music. Okay, see someone doing all this, moving all these things. It's a guitar player, and especially a singer has to work the hardest to try and capture somebody. Right, they're on the front.
Oh, that's crazy.
They're in the front, right? So, for me as a drummer, I played hundreds of live shows with bands. At one point, I was, taking it very seriously, recording in studios, and this is around the time of when I was buying my turntables and getting into DJing. So I've never had the issue of, am I a good performer, right, outside of what I'm playing? Because, okay, I've got the drum set. Then you come to DJing, right? And you get into it, and to me, I'm like, okay, it seems like a much more simple act. I'm standing here, and I hope people understand that I'm actually doing work, because me coming from DJing, I'm like, okay, well, or from drumming, now I'm actually just standing. I'm just standing here, I'm not really moving my hands like I used to. The act of itself was so, you have to kind of look at what's going on, that you're so far back that the people in the crowd aren't necessarily a concern. So now you're in the front. People are staring at you. You're right up there, right? You're not even really doing anything in their eyes, because if they're used to seeing a guitar player going, or doing the drummer thing, this might
Yeah.
this might appear boring as a show. Okay, so then we're going through that.
Well, I can totally. I mean, yeah.
Then we go through that.
I'm with you on that. I can totally see how, you know, like.
You there?
Yeah, we hear you.
I am. Yeah,
So,
I lost you for a second, but I'm good now.
Yeah. So then EDM starts, right? So then, and we've talked about this before, Wes. You know, as a show, I mean, there's some cool stuff about it. But I'm thinking, A, I don't have a drum set. I'm not moving around. B, people might not even realize how much heady stuff is going into what I'm really doing here. And C, I don't even have a cake to throw at them.
Right.
So I'm like, man, I mean, like, someone here actually realizes, I hope someone here actually realizes like what I'm doing, you know. And I'm constantly thinking that, and so that goes back to the people that kind of want the live experience, and sometimes I think that for some people, that's the thing that is hard for them to get into what we do, is because they maybe came from an era of they just appreciate more seeing people up there in their mind performing. So that's something I think about all the time.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I think, well, I mean, first a couple things. Like on the technology side of like having come from turntables to now CDJs is you know, the incumbent club device that's out there when you're cruising around, that you don't have to haul records around, and these things have been debated and hashed a million times. So not to go into all of that, but I will say I was a little bored at first because I was kind of like from the CDJ 1000 world, I never really did much with that because it just wasn't as it didn't strike me, like looking at the feature list, it didn't strike me as something that I really felt like learning, you know, the whiz bang beyond beat matching, because I already did that. So the stuff at the time was kind of the bigger, you know, sync or BPM readouts and stuff, which I didn't care about at all. So I just used them as traditional deck 1, 2. But these newer CDJs, you know, the two things, I mean, they're now so accurate, man, with the algorithm that does the BPM detecting and that stuff. A little bit of prep, you know, not complaining about it, just a little bit of prep, and then you can take advantage of some pretty cool tools. And as much as people like, you know, as much as people boo the sync thing, you know, there are some legitimate, like, and I'm going to say this because I think that when you use the word sync in general, people go crazy like you're not a real DJ. And I actually really disagree with that. Now that I've myself worked on exploring the newer devices a lot more, particularly in the Pioneer now to develop, find me somebody or tell me if you know somebody who can take, you know, 130 and beat match no problem. You know, you get a live pitch shift, for example, to take something that's say 90 beat per minute and then switch from the 130 beat per minute, which is the song that's playing, and seamlessly and sync, quote unquote, bring that down to BPM range. I don't know anybody that could do that. And I know I can't.
Yeah, no, I think I got.
That's one of the areas. Oh, sorry about that. I may have dropped out. Did you drop out?
You're dropping out, but I think I got the gist of what you're saying. That like, and this is going to lead me into what I want to talk about next. Was that right? You probably couldn't do that with vinyl, right? You couldn't do that with traditional turntables. The technology's allowing you now to do something new that you weren't able to do before, right? I was starting to.
Yeah, like you would, like with turntables, you wouldn't even the pitch range. There's no way. So.
Right. And I actually started catching on to a little bit of that when I bought my 2000 Nexuses. I was realizing that there's a lot of time invested in vinyl with turning around, going into the record bin, pulling it out. Sometimes the needle has fuzz on it. Sometimes you put it on and you go to cue it and you miss your first drop. right? So what I was realizing was that the CDJs were shaving off a couple seconds here, a couple seconds there. And also I started noticing that the songs were being produced a little bit different. The lengths of the songs were starting to become shorter. And I think that had to do with us requiring less time with this new technology and being able to, and obviously if you just sync or you just, go right to the beat, I mean, then you remove, I don't know, however, the best guys at beat matching still might take 10, 15, whatever many seconds. So you're shaving off time.
Yeah, I
right?
mean, you clearly, and that's, you're right. I mean, you clearly don't, especially for anyone that's listening to this that might not understand the song length thing. There used to be 6, 8 minutes, could be common, especially in techno and trance records, and now maybe they're a little long, maybe they're not, maybe techno and trance and some of those longer mixing type genres are not, shorter than 3 minutes, but I can tell you in the breaks world, there's a whole lot of 3 to 4 minute stuff out there, and it's not a bad thing. It's just like you said. It's like, well, why? I don't need a minute and a half, intro and outro anymore. So I really don't need to put that on there,
Right, and I think in realizing that kind of helped me evolve. I'm always looking for ways to evolve and improve in certain aspects. And so I'm saying, okay, these songs are getting shorter, they're a little bit quicker to mix. I'm shaving off some time that I don't need anymore. So what it did is I'm like, okay, I'm going to actually mix a little bit longer. I'm going to do kind of different things that I wasn't able to do with the vinyl format because I was more on rails, I felt, with it, because of the time that was a little bit more, that was invested in having to prep and get everything where you needed to go. And that, like I said, a dancer might bump the turntable, right? That's another good example. Or the vibration from a speaker. You can also send that needle straight into the middle, right? And then you got to pull it back, right? So there's all these things that happen, and even in the best scenario, it's still time. So I looked at it like, I'm okay with these shorter tracks. Whereas before, sometimes you'd be kind of weary of like a really cool track, and you're like, man, why did this guy produce it at 1.5 minutes? Like, did he even realize like that I have to?
I have a theory on that, and I recently watched this new, or maybe it's 2015 documentary on DJ AM. If you haven't watched it, check it out. It's just a great thing for anybody that likes DJing of any sort. And through that, I learned, because I didn't live on the West time on the East Coast, and there wasn't internet in terms of getting information and streaming everything and all that. So he's over there blowing up the LA scene, and this live mashup style, like you were talking about, of what would be kind of more of a scratch mixer. He was fusing that, turntablism thing with dance culture, right? And so where it wasn't just like listening to a turntable from that aspect, it was doing that with pop, but mashing that up, right? So I think he's credited with certainly big influence or popularizing, the mashup, the live mashup, right? And so it occurred to me when I watched that I think that one of the reasons why you've got, aside from the technology, why we've got so much shorter songs is because electronic music, categories has become much more popular, obviously, and I think that because of that, you get a lot more people, let's say in their 20s, as it would be today, who may have been in college or high school or something where they were listening to, open format DJs, and then they got interested in EDM, whether it's the pop brand or the super underground techno brand, whatever. And I think because they're totally fine with short songs because they came from, it out at a, your average SA, you would have been exposed to this very short mashup mixing style, that was popularized from AM, and you would have no problem with that in going to EDC or wherever and hearing someone blow through 40 tracks in an hour. You wouldn't know any difference, so it wouldn't seem weird to you. Versus like you and I both know that some maladjusted folks from the old school days, they still try to, but there's good reasons why it doesn't make sense anymore.
Right. No, that makes sense. I mean, And a lot of these people that get into it, they're probably their only DJ experience is when they go to a wedding, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, that's true too.
Right, and that's another type of DJing, which I think is probably one of the hardest DJs to be, is a wedding DJ. That's got to be.
Dude, I did it once.
I did it once too, but it wasn't a wedding. It was for a junior high dance. It was in Las Vegas, but it was my cousin's DJ thing, and he was taking the lead. He had the music, but yeah, because you have to appeal from ages 8 to 80. I mean, that's a wide range of people that you have to appeal to.
My one wedding DJ experience friend who trying to become a professional bull rider, and so you know where this is going. So he's totally into country, and I had no country music. So his parents told me they would pay for me to go find all this country music if I would do the wedding because he's broke. so I DJed the experience with that, and it was a trip, man.
When was this? Was this all on vinyl, or were you playing CD? I mean,
CDs.
Yeah.
It was all CDs. Yeah. There was no beat or traditional what you and I would consider involved.
Right. Yeah. The CDJs that are like rack mounted vertically, and they can go into a thing.
Yeah, I think
every good moment.
I think if I can remember right, I think they were actually well, they were like a 3-space mount Denon, right, left, and maybe there was a pitch adjust, but the funny thing was there was no jog wheel, right? So it was just the pitch adjust was like 2 arrows, one to the left and one to the right, like a plus and a minus, and you'd kind of have to sit there and there's clearly no readout, no BPM, nothing. So,
right, yeah.
That was bizarre. Yeah. Experience times or that era with DJing with CDs too, because you clearly couldn't get country music on vinyl, at least not any shop I knew, and so that was the other reason, like when the CDJ 400s and 800s started coming, with the smaller 3-inch, 3.5-inch jog wheel, I didn't want anything to do with it, man. It was just a horrible experience to me versus vinyl. So I kind of flew all the way through the 1000s, all the way up to, I didn't own a pair until the 2000s. That was my first pair, was the 2000.
I bought my first pair in 2013. I held out for a long time, and I probably would have bought them 5 years earlier, but I was starting to kind of find some of the music that I was really getting more into still on vinyl. But then the writing was on the wall. Nothing was getting pressed, so it just became a content issue. It had nothing to do with me wanting to leave vinyl. Hey, if I had a press here at home where I had a stack of just undone vinyl, and I could take my favorite Wes Smith track that I just downloaded right from beatport.com Monday. What's the date? Monday, a new track from on beatport.com. I'm doing the plug for you, Wes. So
Super bass, it's coming, baby.
I download Super Bass on Monday from beatport.com, and what I can do is I plug it into my at-home, 3D printer-ish version of a home pressing kit, and I press all my stuff to vinyl, and I go to the club and play it that way on turntables. I'd be so down with that, but I'm sure that would be very cost prohibitive.
That's it. Well, yeah, you know what? So this is something that you've uncovered, at least for me, not come up in any other conversation or variety show yet, and that is the use of 3D printing to do things like that. It's clearly possible.
It is clearly possible, and the price point is obviously coming down with some of these at-home that I'm seeing, and I've been talking about it for a little while now, ever since I saw the price point come down. I'm like, this could actually happen. There we go.
Pardon me losing your train of thought there, brother. But yeah, have you done any 3D printing? Have you had any experience with it at all, with anything?
No. When I went to college for architecture, I went to an art school in San Francisco, and we had some pretty slick equipment. We had just gotten a laser cutter, and then we did get a 3D printer, and this thing was the 3D printer was the size of like a Honda Accord. I mean, it was huge. As far as now seeing them 10 years later, they're like a little desktop thing. And I remember them telling us like, oh, this.
You can buy them, dude. You can buy them at Home Depot.
Right, exactly. So it's amazing just to and they made a big deal of this in 2005 at our school. They're like, and it was a big deal. They said, this is the biggest 3D printer this side of the Mississippi. And they were like saying it, right? And then it's like 10 years later you can go get these things. So you never know with these technologies, but I've never done 3D printing. I've never done.
I'm kind of curious how long it's going to last in the consumer format anyway, because think about like, I mean, it has so many more applications than just, you know, music medium, but I'm thinking about like CDs, and then you could burn CDs more than once. You know, that was kind of the evolution, right? And I think all that happened in like 10 years, maybe 15 at the most, and then now, like, good luck trying to find a CD on a computer, much less where you're going to go buy the medium. I think you could probably get it on Amazon or something. But shelves of CD media in Best Buy, you know, just like, I mean, in Circuit City or something, like within 5 years, right?
Right.
It's all vanished.
But then there's crazy stuff that, like, I just read that the last company that makes VCRs in Japan is going to make the last VCR in September or something. Like they're finally going to stop making.
Where do you see it? Because I don't expect you to, like, you know, I don't expect anybody to follow anything of anybody's bullshit online, but all of it. But so I was, one of my trips traveling around, I think it was in Bishop or Susanville or some place with maybe less than 10,000 population, and there's that, you know, you go in and there are, at the convenience store, they'll have a shelf that's got VHS on it, man. You can buy them.
Right. But you know what, though? The cool thing about this is VHS is starting to kind of come back, because...
Oh, God, please.
Check this out. Check this out. People that, like, are purists in movies, right? It's coming back in, like, a niche market. It's not going to come back in, like, the mainstream. But a lot of people, what they did is when they put these things on DVD...
Yeah, because vinyl...
Right. When they put these things on DVD, they re-edited stuff, and they kind of changed some versions. So, like, you know, I mean, this is outside of the whole Star Trek changing stuff, or Star Wars, I mean, it's where, you know, changed that film. But I'm talking about, like, where they took a movie and now put it on DVD. Sometimes, like, they'll do things to it. So some people look at the VHS format like, okay, that's the way I remember it. That's the way I... So there's kind of like a little niche market.
Oh, that's true. At a minimum, I think they changed the ratios and, you know, and they make Captain Kirk look fatter or skinnier than he was in the original, you know, airing on a TV set, things like that.
Some of it's not meant to be played on a HD or a 4K television on Blu-ray, even though they upped the video quality. It's still, there's some people that still want to watch it on their CRT TV.
Well, so I mean, a good example is, I think I was going to say, I think, because I'm looking at one right now in front of me, not where this camera is, but the big monitor I have here in front of me, and it's you know, it's whatever they're calling a smart TV now. I can do, you know, computer or video or whatever with it. You know, clearly the I'm just looking at it, and the ratio, you know, the dimensional ratio is much more like that of a movie theater, you know. So I guess that's why all that is so much harder now. The stuff that came from the day when a TV was square, because I remember TVs being square, right, with the knob. Right? That's why they make such good fish tanks.
Absolutely. But they're heavy, though. They're heavy, for sure.
Oh, dude, it's crazy, man. This TV, I got this, like, well, it's actually a computer monitor, but it's like a Dell. I'm a big Apple guy. Do you use Apple or Windows, or do you care?
No, don't get me started on Windows. I use it at work, but I'm an Apple guy.
Yeah. I've used it in tech as well, my tech stuff that I've done. But yeah, for creative, it's all Apple.
I'm trying to
but yeah, they stopped making the monitor. They stopped making. Yeah, Apple stopped making their Retina monitor, which was due anyway. They either needed to make a new one or stop making that one because it was just getting obsolete. But so I was trying to find a really in good condition I wanted on eBay, or the price in the used market. So I went looking for monitors that would work with, like, a MacBook Pro. So I found this Dell one on some top 5 list, and it's been working great. But that's what that is. But my point you were saying about the weight of them is, Yeah, dude, I haven't bought a TV in a minute because I don't really watch just a lot of regular TV. Whatever, like most people, pad or something more personal, sized. And the box is huge. I think the box weighed more than a TV. Like the box and all the foam packing and like the triple foam packing and whatever to make sure it doesn't, get punctured or whatever. I think it weighed more than the television. Because I picked it up with one finger. When I unpacked it, I was like, it was like an endless sea of box folding, and it was like an origami project inside the TV box, man.
Nice.
Yeah, to get in there. But anyway, time changes, man. So do you miss vinyl? All that said, do you miss vinyl, Eric?
I'm gonna close on that, and I'm gonna segue for you too. Okay, so check this out.
Do it, dude.
But if we haven't exhausted the segment, then you gotta slow me down. We'll go back. So
we've never exhausted the segment. I've still got more tea left.
Go for it.
So speaking of drinks too, I didn't know if I was supposed to do this, but I blocked out the sponsor. I heard from Juice contacting me. They said we're not allowed to have any sponsors unless that's okay with you. So I blacked them out.
He's lying.
Oh, nice.
Is that okay? Okay, hold on. Can I take this off then? Let's do that.
Yeah,
that guy Eric is quick on his feet.
Yeah, take it off. It's fine.
No, we can do it.
Really?
What do you got, man?
Coconut water.
What are you drinking?
Nature's energy drink. I like that.
Is that one that I mean that's a good marketing slogan. I'm curious if that one is look on the back for me and tell me how much sugar that one's got.
Yeah, I want to know how much sugar is in it.
I have no doubt it's good, but I'm curious how much sugar is in it.
14 grams.
14 grams.
13?
13 grams.
The lowest I've seen in any of the coconut waters is about 6 or 7.
I think you're not supposed to have more than like 50 grams of sugar a day, but God, that's hard to not go over.
Dude, my problem is I have a sweet tooth. My problem is I have a sweet tooth, so like I don't want to sound like I'm an anti-sugar guy because, but I try to eliminate it from anything where I can actually read that it's there, because like I know at some point during the week, like if I go like, for example, last week I was at a county fair of all things, and they got cotton candy.
That's all you have to say. That's all.
Like, dude, cotton candy, caramel apples, candied apples. If you want to redline my sugar intake, just bring a plate of those over.
It's the combination of the rides and the food.
So I felt like I'm desperately, in the sugar front, I'm aware of it, and I'm starting with trying to eliminate it from things that actually have truthful food labels, where you have a variety, right? Like you can find teas, like the one I have right now is sugar-free. So, you can find teas that have 0 or 2 or 5 or 20, maybe up to like 35, I think is the highest I've seen. That's crazy, dude. That's like tea at that point.
Yeah, sugar's an interesting thing. It's definitely the gateway drug.
Hey, I've got a segue for you. Speaking about segues, so the sugar and health.
I never did my segue. I was doing the sponsor.
I know. How's he going to segue if you're going to segue? We can't have all these segues. Too much.
We'll do a double segue. Here, I'm just gonna advertise real quick for this. You can do whatever you want for a minute. I forgot to mention this. I was going to mention this. So for any dirty hippies out there, and if you're only listening to the audio, it's not an insult. It's actually the name of the clothing brand. It just says hippie on it, and I'm wearing one, so I guess in a sense people look at me maybe think I'm a hippie or something. But anyway, that is from Mike Meany. He's a Juice and just bass music, breakbeat super fan, lives in Las Vegas, man. So Eric, this dude actually flew from Vegas to the Miami Music Week this year just to go check this guy out for a super fan. Just to go to the party that I played and Agent 137, a bunch of others, down in Miami, Lady Wax, Decline, and then he flies from Miami back to Vegas, and then Lady Wax and I are playing with with ShYo, you know, Jenny ShYo.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
The next weekend in LA. No, 2 days later in LA. Dude flies from Miami to LA, shows up at the party in the airport, shows up at the party, and he's like, "What's up?"
We need more people like that. That's like the old school, like, you know, like the rock and roll, like when like the 70s rock and roll is like really, you know, moving. These super fans. Where are the super fans?
I have one too.
So this shirt company, I'm standing up again if you're watching the video. This shirt company is, you know, that it says hippie, but it's got a kind of design on the logo. It's a legit tag, you know, legit dudes doing tie-dye. This is Mike and one of his buddies out of Vegas.
Those are cool. I like both those.
Russ, do you see mine?
Yeah, see what's up? Look, the guy does some cool stuff, man.
Is it camo in the back? It's camo, right?
Yeah, it's pro. It's pro. Eric, he's gonna find you. Eric, he's gonna find you and send you some now.
It's camouflage, right? I'm trying to make it out in the video here. I see the tie-dye part. Really cool.
Yeah, he's gonna show up at Faultline one day. You bet. I bet you.
What's his name? Let's get him on the guest list.
He probably just doesn't know yet, and he will now after this episode because I'll send it to him to watch it. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, dude. Back to your segue. Weren't you gonna do a segue? God, you're slow.
That was a word from our sponsors: Rayleigh's coconut water and the shirts.
And hippie shirts.
Oh, that was your coconut water sponsor, and then I had to go attack the sugar content.
Yeah, well, you know, now that I know I'm allowed to accept sponsorships on your show. The UFC.
I hope
they take all the stuff off.
I hope it's good, Eric. It's killing you sip by sip. Yeah. So I don't think it's as bad as people make out.
One thing I like to think about is, you know, with the whole vinyl, like we're saying, the vinyl versus the CDJs, is vinyl is very much like playing pinball. You know, you're controlling this. You're controlling this object that has gravity. You actually have to move it, you know, and it's force. It's got a force back, you know, force feedback kind of thing going on. Whereas like the CDJs now, it's like playing video games, right? Where you basically the thing is inside there, and it's all digital, right? You're not manipulating any gravity anymore. There's no gravity. There's no force feedback, and I think those are some of the things that I miss as well. That I think the newer generation might not understand why we like the vinyl so much. Is that it's just a different type of relationship.
I mean, that part is, yeah, that tactile part is definitely a big piece of it. Now that you mention it, because even back to what you were saying about like you're kind of standing there like, what do I do with myself, right? Like you know, as a DJ, but sometimes, but when you had that you know, that 12-inch platter turning. I think even just having your fingers on it or something, some part of it moving, doing something, made your mind think you were more occupied, at least as the DJ. Maybe not from a crowd perspective, but it certainly felt more like you were doing something, you know, in that sense. So was the answer to the question? You don't really miss it, though, do you?
The vinyl? It's expensive. I mean, man, you had to kind of sell your music to support the habit. So I think that was the thing that I really don't miss.
Yeah.
Because I
don't miss it.
You could flip your vinyl. You could flip your vinyl for money, and it was like a viable thing that was happening because, you know, you wanted 10 songs, it's going to be $120, and 10 songs now doesn't. Yeah. 10 songs now doesn't cost anywhere near $120. So that's definitely
for most of the people listening, it costs $0 because nobody pays for music.
Well, right. So my generation, I'm always like, I don't think I've ever stolen anything. I think once I downloaded like a free thing off of Napster. I think like they're probably still looking for me. It was like some Uberzone remix that like I didn't have on vinyl. Right. It was like I found something that he did, and I thought it was really cool. And I was like, okay, well I have to download this. I can't pay for it. There's no way to pay for it. So I think I technically stole it. Maybe I don't know. But I think that's the only time I've always paid for music. It just seems like something you do. So unless it's a free download on SoundCloud.
Right. Well, that's not stealing though. The person's offered it. You know?
Yeah,
So like,
and then sometimes
I mean,
it's the only way to get.
do you think the current outside of music, which was what you were specifically talking about in the free, not free paid, whatever, but do you think that's a generational thing, just the regard for stealing in general, or just like the content, you know, certain types of content, mostly digital stuff? They just grew up without really, you know, because they had no experience with ever paying for it physically. They just don't. It just doesn't occur to them.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. It's that you don't physically hold it in your hand. It's more of a conceptual thing. It's in the cloud. It's in your phone. And
yeah.
I think,
I don't know about you, but I feel kind of dirty, dude. If I steal anything, dude. Like, I used to take. I was one of those kids that would take those sort of yard ornaments and sell them or take them to my own house. But I would put them in. I would like switch yards, things like that. You know.
Still gnomes.
wait, so you would take?
Yeah, well, you know.
You would take the pelicans from one yard in Florida, and you would move them over to the yard with the gnomes, and then you'd swap them?
Nice, dude. Nice. It was actually okay. I'm gonna give a moment of laughter for that one. That was quality, dude. That was quality.
Pelicans.
It was actually frogs. It was frogs, large fake clam shells and sailfish. Those were yard ornaments where I grew up.
That's actually not. That's pre-trolling. Like, you were ahead of the time.
Yeah.
It was so funny to switch those things, and people wouldn't notice for like weeks. And be where the sailfish was, and vice versa. It was pretty funny, dude.
Were you the lawn ornament bandit? Is that what you were called? You were like in the newspaper. And
well, funny you should say that, because the way I got caught, me and one of my good.
That's why you stopped. You became.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to tell this story now that it's come up, because I totally. This was back in the archive of my brain.
We have time.
Yeah, this was deep in the archive of my brain. So the way I got caught really quick was this. My buddy Arion was his name. At the, my best friend growing up kind of thing, right? So we're out doing this. One of us had a driver's license. Anyway, we're out taking it up a notch and doing our thing, and we get out of the car. So we were in a different neighborhood. So we get out of the car, and I don't realize it, but I dropped my license out of the car. So, you know, you're in a rush. You know you're doing something wrong. Hop back in the car. I'll ask. That was funny. The next day, my mom's like, "Oh, hey, I got a phone call from so-and-so. Do you know that person?" And I was like, "No, I don't have any idea who they are." And I totally did. And she's like, "Yeah, well, funny, because they found your driver's license in their yard, and
next to the pelicans.
in addition, yeah." And she's like, and in addition to that, they're missing their you know, like yard ornaments, and they're curious if you guys might have done something with them. So this is the one time we actually took them. We set them in my own yard, in the backyard, and my mom had already seen them. So now we're into some like George Washington cherry tree chopping down territory. And I'm just totally screwed, you know. And she's like, so you guys didn't take anything, and my buddy's there just like, and he had spent the night, kind of deal. She's like, you guys are both lying, and you're in big trouble, because I already found them in the backyard, you know. Because our thing was like, oh, we're gonna lie, and then we're gonna run back there and like throw them in the river behind the house or something, so no one finds it. And we went back out there to try to get them, and they were gone, and she had already gotten them, and yeah.
Wes'
So I got caught, dude. And probably steered me out of a life of crime.
Yeah, I'm glad you seem to turn it around.
So for everybody whose music I've ever purchased, you can thank my mother for teaching me that stealing is bad.
Yeah. But you're right, though. I think it's a physical thing, Wes. It's like, you know, something about, and also I think you'd go to the store and you buy it, and then you travel home with it. And I think that's also something to be said, is like the travel time with the object, get it back to your house, and you put it in with your collection. You know, I think that's like a pretty powerful thing with some people, and I don't know. I think if you didn't grow up with that, then yeah, the digital thing might seem a little bit, I take it for granted.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, speaking of crooked, I've got a segue for you. What do you think? What do you think of the nickname, Trump's nickname for Hillary Clinton, Crooked Hillary? Like, how crazy is that?
No, you can't do this.
No.
Oh, I'm going, dude. I'm going. I was going to just start with it. I was going to go straight in.
Our PR people already talked.
I was listening to the O'Reilly Factor, and I was just waiting to get into this with you because you're from the Bay Area, and I don't know, just generally speaking, every time I talk to people from the Bay Area, they've got interesting things to say about this stuff.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy lately. I've almost had to detach myself from it in the last, I think the last 2 weeks with these conventions, but it's been hard to not kind of see some things filtering in. But it's exhausting, man. The whole thing lasts 18 months. You know, from when they start to kind of fundraise, right? A lot of people don't realize that 18 months is a long time, no matter what side you're on, no matter what your views are. That's taxing, man. Like, you know, we have our own lives and things we have to deal with, and you know, you kind of don't want to be ignorant as bliss. You know, you want to be somewhat engaged with topical things and what's going on with you know, items that really matter. But yeah, 18 months is a long time, and I think we have got like what, 5 more months? 4. I mean, it's exhausting. So it's been
well,
tough.
the O'Reilly segment I was listening to today, it wasn't him talking. It was one of the shows by his producer or something for the TV show. But it was coverage on the DNC, some stuff, and he had a guest on there that gave some factoids, very neutral factoids. They were saying that American population pays attention in, I think she said June, July, and August. And basically that's when the elections are won, historically speaking, which I don't know a whole lot about how it all works in terms, you know, outside of the basics of you know, the mechanics of the election system. But in terms of all these stats and, you know, all the players and how they run campaigns, like that part I don't have any firsthand knowledge of. So that's what she was talking about in terms of, regardless of Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, whatever, she was just saying that they're pretty much, and then you have, you know, all this fanfare and large advertising budget spending, which doesn't really change much. I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, I could see that because I've had some conversations with people. Had some conversations with some people, and they were a lot less engaged in it than I thought they were at the time, and that probably points to what you were just saying, that this is a month or two ago, and that most people really don't start paying attention until most of the dust is settled.
Yeah.
But probably a lot of that has to do with that it's an exhausting thing maybe for some people, and it's so I think it's you know, it's your duty to kind of monitor it. Obviously, you know, you got to know what's going on. But I'm not surprised that most people don't start paying attention till.
Yeah, I try. I mean, I probably spend an hour or so. What about you, Kelly? How much time do you spend listening to all the election race stuff?
I really have tried to stay away from it at this point. It just gets very frustrating. Everybody has, you know, opinions either way, and I don't know. It seems like a moot point, if you will, to try and convince somebody on the other side to go to the other side. So everybody's just kind of talking around. Thing that I sent you with the dogs licking the slug today. That's how I feel.
Oh, I didn't get it, but now I do.
I
didn't understand it, is what I meant.
Yeah, it's a video of 2 dogs and they're licking the glass, and there's a slug on the other side, and they're just going to town at it. And I just feel like that's how some of the arguments just keep going back and forth, especially in social media. It frustrates me. We used to share music and have fun and funny quips, and now everyone's just kind of battering each other about their beliefs in politics. So I've kind of actually stepped away from social media because of it, a little bit.
Yeah, I don't feel the need. I don't spend 1 second getting involved in, you know, politics commentary in social media. You know,
No.
because I don't know, like, and I was going to ask you, Eric, kind of from an opinion standpoint, because this is something I've been kind of like you said, it's a citizen duty, of course, yes, and to vote, and these are fantastic rights that we have to be able to do that and be part of the process. But at the same time, the way that this particular round is unfolding, even regardless of opinions or crooked or not, or there's almost consensus that both are crazy, it's a better of which evil, whatever your opinion is, even outside of that, this is the most craziness on social media. Like, you're in circles with me on Facebook where I'm sure you've seen there's people that like are defriending people for having an opinion about Trump or Hillary, whoever, Bernie.
Yeah, I think the opinions are okay. I think it's sometimes how you
Deliver.
how you deliver your opinion, and also how I think I'm fairly careful with how I deliver my opinion. I try to keep things sort of open-ended, and like that this. I think like I'm very careful with my words. I say things like I think this could be a certain way instead of I know this is a certain way. Or I'll say like this is something I've observed. What do you think? And then I'll just kind of put it out there as opposed to like this is my opinion. Now comment on what I said. I'm just kind of sharing it as a forum. So I try to be pretty careful with what I say, and it gets tough. I mean, when you get up there around 4,000 Facebook friends, and a lot of people that you really maybe haven't passed the Wes Smith barbecue test yet. I'm trying to reference something from every show.
Oh, nice. That's a nice throwback. The Wes Smith barbecue test. Yeah.
So I think things get a little tricky. I think things get a little tricky, and I've learned to, if it's a touchy subject, I try not to engage with in the comments. I've learned not to. And also, if I see something that
I mean, it's so like I.
No, I was gonna say if I see something that seems silly.
Go ahead.
If someone says something right, and I'm kind of taken back by it, like, whoa, that's a pretty brash opinion. It's a different opinion, but it's pretty off-putting. Yeah, some of my other friends will take care of that guy.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't have to
Erase it.
I don't erase it. I leave it there, and I just, I'll go back and maybe I'll check it later, and I'll be like, okay, some of my more reasonable friends took care of this person, and they went in and they,
Yeah. Well, that's one of the beauties, I guess. That's one of the beauties of the whole social media empire.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely tricky.
Is others taking care of business?
Right, and I also heard, you and Alex were talking about like the personal page versus the artist page, and I do try to keep stuff on my artist page fairly artist related. And the personal page, I try to keep it an eclectic mix of what I feel like is what makes me me. So it's your own forum. You do with it what you want.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's mind blowing. I think this election cycle has been really weird for a couple reasons. I think the implementation of video on mobile Facebook has changed a lot because now you're not able to just have a meme. You're able to scroll through like a news thing, right? So people are kind of now getting a lot more informed than they ever were before. You're seeing like white text on videos now, implying like, hey, I'm at work. I can't turn this on, but I still want to be informed by this, right? So I'm able to actually read it. So
yeah.
Like I'm noticing some of that. I'm also noticing that people are really taking their news from like however many words you can fit in that little bold thing below the photo and what article it is, and that's usually about 8 or 9 words. And sometimes, it's sensational, right? Whatever someone might write, and then you read the article, and it's like, oh, it's actually a pretty well written article, but it was clickbait, right? It's a clickbait. So
yeah, that stuff sucks. That's why I think the evolution of of podcasting, like in the open, whether it's interview or just research, so is very research based. But I think that stuff is becoming far more interesting, I think, to a lot of people, certainly myself. All the people at the bar I was chatting with last night, they were saying that that's probably their worst, a lot of the politics, real information, research, things like that, because you can just listen, while you're cruising around or whatever, and maybe pay a little bit more attention than certainly the attention that I give to social media. It's pretty quick, like you said. It's pretty flash, forced interaction.
Right, but I think what's tricky too is you can only congregate with so many people before the internet, right? And I think you're starting to see like elevated levels of kind of mob mentality sometimes. You see these kind of like, right? You'll see certain groups, and you have the.
You're used to that. You're used to that being from the Bay Area, dude. Y'all are like the home of like protests.
Yeah, they shut down 880 right outside. I mean, and when these things happen, San Francisco and Oakland are on the map for. If the world's upset about it, these two cities are going to let you know. So. Yeah, they shut down the freeway a couple weeks ago.
What's the biggest protest you've seen in your time, which I guess is your... Like, what was the issues and like the largest number of people? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, it goes all the way back to like the Berkeley protests, right before I was even born, like the late 60s. But I mean, I think the biggest ones I've seen are probably for like the war. I think like 2003, they were shutting down the bridge a lot. There was a lot of stuff going on, and then lately, like all the other stuff. So I think it's 2 times. It's been the recent things that have been going on, and then about 12 years ago. 12 years ago, yeah, 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah. Hey, I was one of the things I was thinking along those lines. You made a comment on Facebook during the week. Speaking of Alex, and a number of topics that he was. I don't need to get into the specific topics, but his overall point was talking about why I think in the art music community particularly, that more popular people don't support talking about some of the more controversial issues out there. And whether it be, the gender discussions going on, or racism, or whatever, my point was not to dig into the specific like topic, but more the case of, like that fragility of people speaking out about something and just having it blow up in a way they didn't intend for it to do it. I mean, I think that's as much of it as them not having an opinion or being afraid of it. I think a lot of it's what you and I just talked about, right? I mean, they may be taking action or being an activist in a different way, but you may not see it in the social media way, because if you have millions of followers, which is what some of these people do have, you can really get misunderstood, and that can go for a ride for quite some time. Turn your life upside down, I would imagine.
I think it's not even a factor of being misunderstood. It's the fact that people are looking to become, internet famous off of somebody else's back, and will say something just to bait them into it. Like you said, the mob mentality.
Yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, but I think that's kind of what you were talking about, right, Eric?
Yeah, and I think, man, I don't have 1 million followers, but I can only imagine that, once you start to get to that level, your fan base is pretty spread out. And I mean, what we're seeing now is there's not just 2 opinions for something, there's like a 3rd opinion, right? And there's like, we're starting to realize that there might not just be the, right? So now there's like that, and then there might even be like someone else's opinion, and you might alienate 30% of your audience by one comment. And I think sometimes as an artist, I think people like to kind of, for them it's enjoyment, right? It's entertainment for them.
Totally, yeah.
So they don't come to us. They come to us to escape that stuff, right? I feel like,
I would agree. I would agree. I mean, hey, as a fan, when I'm in the fan boat, that's what I do. You know, like I was going to even say, like, I've got people I follow that I really like their music. You know, and Kelly, one of Kelly's phrases is always, you know, never meet your heroes, right? But I've got folks that I follow, some I haven't even ever met in person, and just, you know, about, you know, they're just their opinions, and that's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that. They're just things that I completely may not agree with, and so I try to distance myself from that having any influence on what I enjoy about their music, you know. And I may not follow them anymore if they have this sort of consistent stream of consciousness that's just, you know, overshadowing the whole reason I learned about them in the first place, you know.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird, man. It's weird in that way, and yeah.
And I think
it's very difficult if you don't know people or have the opportunity to fairly discuss something. I think it's really fragile to both make comments that may be, you know, highly controversial and or misunderstood by people who would like to hear you talk about things more, you know.
Right, and I think a lot of it stems from confidence in what you're saying, and I think, hey, I don't know everything. I don't know. I don't have everything, the right answers to everything, and I think to make a statement, it's just like putting yourself out there with like your music or whatever. You need to be confident with what you put out there, because at the end of the day, it's like if someone doesn't like what you're doing, at least you can have a good reason why you're doing it, right? And I feel like that might be the thing. It's like maybe some people don't really know, and they're a little bit unsure of sharing their opinions based on that. Because when I say something, you might be able to change my...
Well, I'm that way. I would agree with you. I'm that way. In the politics arena, man, I'm very uninformed in my own opinion of myself.
Me too.
So, you know,
I'm an architect. I'm not a poli-sci major.
And I'm struggling with trying to absorb enough information to make some kind of choice, you know, in November without being just because I don't like someone's hair or you know, or their wall, or because they defended, you know, a rapist or whatever, you know. Like, I don't want to, at the end of the day, I feel like I realize those probably don't have much to do with how they're going to influence running the country for 4 years.
Right, and I think that sometimes I don't want that stuff in my entertainment.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, two things really kind of irked me. One was I follow Mac, I think it's Mac Trast or something on Twitter, and it's like Mac information, Macintosh, you know, Apple stuff, and they posted something like the deals of the day, and it was like vape pens and like the liqueur, and I wrote them, and I was like, what are you doing? I follow you guys to get information on Apple products. I don't want to hear about vape pens, and they wrote me back. They're like, oh, it was just the deal of the, they wrote me back. They're like, it's just the deal of the day. It's something we're testing.
Juice.
Like, well, right. They're like, we're just testing it. We're just testing it. We probably won't do it again. And the same day, yesterday, one of the video games I play, I follow a Twitter account based on that, and it was, they endorsed a presidential candidate. Okay, I'm not gonna say which one it was, and whether or not, you know, you agree with them, I wrote them back. I said, I don't want politics in this video game. I'm like, in this world that you've created for this game, where I go in and I splat people with ink, I don't want a political message. You like just, and I'm like, shame on you. And everyone was like, yeah, you're right. You know, it's like, so it's like, sometimes I don't want that crossover. But I think
that's like one of the biggest. To me, that's one of the biggest mismanagement issues so far that I've experienced with the internet. Is
that was just some rogue person.
Yeah, because everything's so much more connected, and that brings certain conveniences for sure. But because of that, it's also way worse when it's mismanaged, because, you know, like you said, that was a rogue person. but you do see it. A perfect example, completely off the radar of what we were talking about in terms of products, but accounting software. Like, how boring is that, right? But you got to do it, right? To run any business, you got to do it. So my example with this like internet business management thing is I've used like Intuit, QuickBooks, Quicken forever, okay? And convenient things about, let's say, being able to use the software now on a subscription basis, right? Cool, everything's good with that. Spread out your costs. It's about apples to apples anyway versus buying it outright or licensing it, outright with one fee like you used to do. Cool. You get the updates easier, all that stuff. About that is that every time you log in, they've got this pipeline to like shove stuff in your face that you can't turn off. And that is like, it's such a distraction. It's so weird to me. The same, whatever it is, sized image, the smartphone sized image, that little space is like, everyone's got to get something in there every time your eyeballs hit a computer screen, or I think they feel like they're not taking advantage of their connection to you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I worked
and
in...
It's so annoying.
For 5 years.
Oh,
and it was
so annoying.
I left architecture.
Accounting, for example.
Yeah, I left architecture for 5 years and went into like tech, like building tech. And these were like startups that were starting new building technology stuff. And they're all Silicon Valley companies, right? So they were like, whiz bang, we got this whole thing, and we're gonna turn this website, and like the term is gamification. So like everything now is like, my achievement. I'm sure on when you buy your PlayStation 4 and you get Wes Smith's racing download pack, right, which is available or is probably already available. Correct?
Yeah. There's one available and a second one coming, but yeah.
Yeah, right. So this is the type of stuff. I mean, it's interesting, and they want to gamify things. They want to notify you, and they love the bell. You hear the bell, you hear the bell. Pavlov's dog thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, so for any budding entrepreneurs, I'm telling you, when you're making stuff that, this is my opinion, that are like for doing work, like I swear, if Ableton, for example, like my choice of DAW, if Ableton ever decides to go this route of forcing you to look at an ad for the latest sound pack every time you log into it, that might be enough to make me go learn another DAW. But of course, they'll all be doing it if that happens, so then I won't have any choice anyway. But that's how annoying that would be. Like when someone sits down to do work, like personally, I would rather pay, if I was paying $10 a month to use some product, I would rather pay $11 to have a switch to turn all that off so that I can open it, do work, and close it.
Yeah, it's because it's connected. I mean, nothing is a standalone product anymore. I notice that with my video games. I go to turn it on, I'm like, I want to play this. Oh, it needs to update for 20 minutes.
Dude, you have to go through like update hell anymore. Like now when you don't stuff. And I never noticed it as much until I've been traveling on this particular trip, because when you have low bandwidth on the phone, low 2-bar type coverage, whatever, wherever you are, it's crazy. Like even as good as maybe Google Hangouts like we're using, or Facebook Live, that stuff, you can't watch it. It doesn't run. So there's a lot of America that doesn't have broadband in the sense that you and I and Kelly would think about it. Right. I think that's a huge thing, man. I think there's it's almost like there's always been this discussion about the internet digital divide. Well, that's one that I kind of thought that was starting to become over, but it really isn't. Like with the introduction of more streaming and all this stuff, chewing up your wireless bandwidth, all that stuff, a lot of people just have to turn it off. Like that's what I've been working on for the last week, is like a way to almost like macro turn everything off on my laptop that automatically starts to sync or chew up bandwidth when I turn it on, because it chews up an immense amount of data very quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing what's running in the background, because I know how to use my computer, but do I know how to go under the hood and really tweak with that stuff? Probably not. But yeah, there's a lot of
take 10 minutes. Take 10 minutes and shut everything off every time. Hey, I had something else. I just remembered it. I was going to ask you about the whole activism and speaking up thing, and I was thinking about it the other day, but it just came back to me. Um, I'm curious. Do you know, like, my question? I'll ask you the question, which I like to ask people, which is, where if you want to change something, for example, one of these hot topics out there, and you want to actually put your energy into changing something versus just ranting about it, where do you go?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I mean,
Like, do you have an answer for that? I don't.
somewhere on the local level, I'm sure. I mean,
Well,
you know what I mean? Like it's like what Bernie was saying, man. You got to change it on the local level and try and just keep. But I don't know.
When we were in DC, or when I lived in DC, we would go to protests. We just wouldn't advertise it on Facebook the whole time because we were wearing, masks that are anonymous.
Hmm.
I mean, and you go to something like that, and then one year it's 20 people, and the next year it's 100 people, but that's when people start to pay attention to something like that. You asked, otherwise I wouldn't have said it.
let me ask that question. That may be my one. That may be my one election season question that I actually put on social media, is looking for, like a list of 5 to 10 topics that I see constantly crop up that I don't get involved in, and kind of like asking, like, all the clear professionals out there that are commenting on this, like, where do you send somebody who wants to influence and change, you know, having third bathrooms, or gender neutrality, or racism, or whatever it is you may be passionate about, like, versus wasting time, because I don't think it helps anything, man. Like, honestly, I don't think, I really don't, I really just don't think it helps much. It keeps a topic fresh, maybe, like blasting it all over the internet, but hopefully I look back in 5 years. So far, I don't think that kind of time usage for people, I don't think it changes anything.
Mm-hmm.
Versus like the local level picketing, or like you're talking about, Kelly, or you're saying, Eric. I just thought I'd ask, being from the Bay Area, you might just, have some people there that are more into that local, or, change through stuff.
Well, I mean, I think at least during the protests, I think that's a way to kind of get the national coverage. I think that's kind of like a way of, I guess, posting it on social media. It's like a more natural way of doing it, right? You go out and it's like social, and it's getting posted to the media. And I think some people like have problems with it. And if you look back on it, it's like the freeway was only shut for a day, and everyone in that moment looked like, some people have problems with it. And like if your own kid was killed, you'd be like, let's shut the freeway down. So. Yeah.
Well, I don't disrespect that out. I'm not disrespecting that outpour of, especially when events like that happen, which most people agree, what's the reason for a 12-year-old to die from a gun shooting with a toy gun, right? I mean, there's a lot of conversation around that kind of thing. So I don't.
But no,
certainly not.
It feels active. It feels definitely active. I mean, as far as like when something. That when something really bad in the media or something bad goes on and it gets national attention, that like, Oakland and San Francisco is not going to remain quiet, and something's going to happen. So.
Oh, absolutely. I just don't know that. I guess my question was, or even, I just was, how does somebody who would like to spend time, helping with something, what channel did they go about to do that? So I may that, like I said, that may be one of my pulling things out there to try to have a few ideas of where someone goes. Like, where do you go? Like, how do you find a credible local source or place to spend your time and energy to make an impact and change something?
I mean,
in that.
Yeah, it's going to sound sad, but I do mostly government work. as an architect. I work for the government. Well, I work as an architect for a company that gets contracted by the government. And, you know, they put a man on the moon, but sometimes I'm surprised by some of the way how things work and how slow things move. And I think the system is really intertwined. There's a lot of things going on, and I think that it's not a simple answer. Definitely not a simple answer.
It's super complicated, dude. We'll circle back and
you want change, and then everyone else is slow to adopt. It can be frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's a lot of it as well. All right, Jude. Well, on that note, I want to talk about tacos. I'm just totally flipping the topic.
Yeah. Okay.
Where are they better, Oakland or San Diego? Because I don't think I've ever had them in Oakland or the Bay Area. So you may be the only person I know.
Everyone that's listening in their mind, who's maybe not from San Diego or Oakland, is thinking, is this guy Eric out of his mind, first of all? Why is he suggesting Oakland? Of course, San Diego is San Diego. It's got to have beaches and tacos and beach cruisers and bikinis, right? So, but
the fish taco, dude.
But this is California, right? I mean, there's history in all throughout this state, and you'll find great Mexican food in many places. So where I live in Oakland, where I live in Oakland is in East Oakland. Okay, it's the roughest part of Oakland, and 2 blocks up is International, and there's probably 10 taco trucks within a mile or 2 radius here that are all really popular taco trucks that have been there and people go to all the time. And you know, so I don't know, it might just be one of those things where it's your home cooking is always going to taste better. You know, mama's home cooking is always going to be better than your friend's house. But I think you can.
So what you're saying is you're weighing in that Oakland has the better taco.
I'm being political here and saying that I think you can find a good product anywhere, and you can also. Well, actually, you probably can't find a good product.
Dude, you can't waver like that. You can't waver like that on such a finite thing. We're not talking about election politics here.
Yeah,
it's a
there are
taco,
some
man.
really good tacos in Oakland, though. I'm telling, there are some really good tacos here. I had great tacos in San Diego too.
I have an Eric Riggsbee level answer, I believe, for this kind of situation.
Wait a minute. I'm just going
to run it by you. I'm going to run it by you as if I'm fake Eric Riggsbee, and my answer would be, so that I'm in line with your sort of method of answering questions. My answer would be that in San Diego, because most of the tacos and taco activity is very close to the beaches, what it's known for anyway, I would say they've got the great fish taco, whether fried or grilled. And then I would say in Oakland, although near water, arguably, maybe not water you want to eat fish out of, but near water, I would say primarily I fit as a landlocked versus fishing fresh fish type water, although we have some problems in San Diego too. But in any case, my Eric Riggsbee answer would be San Diego for the fish taco, Oakland for the street taco, issue over.
Oh, that is the best answer. You took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly how I said it.
It's almost like we had this conversation before, and I was just trying to prove a point.
So, but what's your favorite, though? Do you like the fish tacos, al pastor, the shredded chicken? I mean, what's your favorite?
I kind of interjected my own opinion into it's fake Eric Riggsbee, yo, because I really enjoy grilled fish tacos. I do not like fried fish tacos at all. And it's not just because of fried food, because I actually like, for example, super greasy fish and chips. I don't eat it a lot, but that I like that flavor.
It's not the
with malt and that kind of stuff. I do not like it on fish, probably because I grew up in Florida with a lot of fresh fish, and it was always grilled, always maybe lightly cornmeal batter kind of thing. And so I'm just not into that fried taste on fish. So I really like it grilled. That's my answer on the fish taco, man.
No, yeah, I'm a fan of the fish taco myself. I'll go al pastor, but I think sometimes my food choices come down to what's going to feel better in my stomach, you know, and I think fish just digests better than
grilled does for sure. I would agree. For me, it does. Yeah.
I mean,
but on the street taco side, dude, I gotta tell you, man, there's nothing like, you know that, what do they call that? It's like the carrot, sort of the carrot, onion, jalapeno pepper with
the pickled carrot,
something, that mixture they chop. It's like shit on a fish taco, like, to me. But I love that stuff. So I think, like, for me, that's where the street taco comes in, the El Pastor, all the different varieties, because I feel like that's what tastes great with that, and I like that stuff.
Right. Yeah. If I don't do fish, I usually go El Pastor for sure.
Yeah. Well, man, the big question of the day was answered.
I like that. That was very political.
Man.
How do we answer it? I mean, it's so divisive. I don't want to lose half my fan base.
I could tell you one thing. It's made me so damn hungry, and I just realized that this is officially the longest variety show ever. And Kelly,
I knew it.
Kelly's gonna be and so what's gonna happen? Let me just tell you how this is gonna go down.
I'm gonna hate you.
Kelly's gonna be like, she's gonna be like, oh, dude, I gotta chop this into 4 pieces, because we use ghetto technology, and to post this back on, other than the YouTube video, which will be the full length. Yeah.
It's okay.
But yeah,
that's good. I can't wait to see what the form looks like.
No worries.
This is, Eric, I may have shared this with you, but one of the goals, aside from chatting with people I look on here and think, or people that I don't, other than that goal, that self-serving goal, and today was awesome for me for that. The other goal, more technical, is trying to do this whole, like, variety show podcast with as close to free as possible across the board on the technology, the internet, everything, and it does raise some challenges, even like the hosting, because you have a place to have the files hosted, stuff like that for the podcast, through SoundCloud as well, and then it's natively on YouTube, so it's like 4 or 5 different places, Google Play, whatever, but it takes time to do that, and you gotta, like, chop it up in this or that, and maybe Kelly doesn't feel like working in Ableton that day, and we want to use something free or whatever to do it, So it's an interesting challenge, I will tell you that. So we if you've sat there at all, you, Eric, or others that listen and thought, why don't they upgrade their podcast equipment so they don't have dropouts, they don't have you. But on the high end of stuff, like, we're really, really trying not, like, we're boxing ourselves in a bit with some rules to, like, not go into the traditional studio, 2 mics, expensive gear, all that kind of stuff.
Right. I think this makes it easier, I think, to be able to have guests. I mean, if you're going to have guests, you're going to have to do something like this, so then why not just make that the format? Yeah, I like it.
It is funny when you
lag.
And
that's why today.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, go ahead, Kelly.
I was saying it was funny when you lag, because it draws out your words. I don't know if Eric is experiencing that too, but it drags out your words. You just kind of sound like a stoner man. Like everything sounds like that.
He's a drunk Max Hedstrom. He's like,
People are gonna think all our guests, like, we send them all edibles or something before the show. No, folks, that's the Joe Rogan Experience. Go over to that one. They did talk about wrong show, but
Eric sounds fine. Eric sounds fine. It's all you.
Yeah. Well, I guess my point to the technology thing and kind of wrapping up today was just sharing a little bit of that with you, Eric, because as we're changing it a little bit every time, but as I told you when we first started today, I got to thinking, I was like, why? Like, I listened to a lot of podcasts. I was using somewhat of a little bit of, the only format of it at all was that in the beginning I would kind of make these announcements, and then we would sort of tell the guests to be quiet or mute them until that was over. And then I started thinking to myself, the only reason anybody does that is because they post-produce their shows. So, like, they pre-record all their adverts and whatever, and then they run that, then when their show is done, whatever technology they're using to record the podcast, then they're taking that video and post-producing it with with trailers and back or whatever it is that they do, and sometimes even in the middle. And we don't do any of that. So I was like, well, if we're not going to do that, then we might as well not worry about it from a format perspective and just try to kind of, give the shout outs and whatever throughout the conversation and show. So thank you for your patience through some of that today, which was first time for us.
Oh, thank you. I've paid for a lot of therapy, and I must say this is the best 2-hour session I have ever had. I've learned a lot about myself, and I hope you guys have too.
Eric, my man, you're so kind. This is. It may get more frequent. I mean, I see what some of these other podcasters, when they talk about what they've learned, kind of about themselves and talking and researching and interviewing over, in some cases 5, 6, 7, 8 years of podcasting. I mean, we just got this going in January this year, but I can totally see what they're saying, and it's it's eye-opening. I mean, so I think anybody, come up with something, and it's very different than the DJ show kind of for me. It continues that I would not have expected. So,
yeah,
and I get to learn cool stuff about. I get to learn cool stuff about people who I've met through music, like you, but really, honestly, until today, I mean, think about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but until today, for you and I, we've really never had an opportunity to kind of hang out and talk outside of either having, girlfriends with us kind of thing, or watching something on TV like fights, or being at a club where it's loud, right?
Absolutely. So I hope I passed the barbecue test.
Yeah. Oh, dude, unless let that be known. Well, Kelly can tell you about that, because poor Kelly Agent 137 has to do her agent. She does her agent duties very well.
Oh yeah.
The very few she has, one of which is explaining to people in far more quantity than she or I ever imagined would be the case, that not DJ Mix show.
I didn't catch any of that. Well, what?
Oh, well, I probably dropped out. What I was saying was, what would surprise a lot of people, maybe Eric included, is, and something we did not expect, was how many people Kelly has to explain that this is not a mix show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm just gonna say this out loud. So if you hit me up in a message and you want to be on the Variety Show, my advice to the person out there that is asking me this is that you should know the name of the show, and you should you should maybe watch one, and that's all I'm gonna say. That's
and I'll add to that. I'll add to that. You should hit up Eric Riggsbee and ask him to explain the barbecue test, and you will be good to go.
Exactly.
And if there's any lawyers out there that can help me get my domain back from that 14-year-old, I'd really appreciate that. I'd like to get going on that. Let's start a GoFundMe. Hey, dude, if we ever have like 1 million followers, that's a whole other topic. How do I feel about GoFundMes? Oh man, that's for next time when you have me on the show.
All right, I'll write that down.
Stop. All right, dude. Hey, man, it was definitely cool getting to catch up with you and learn some new things and all that good stuff, brother. I'm going to go head over to the, what is it? I should give him a shout out. What is this place? Hold on real quick. Yakima, Washington, shout out.
I picture you like. I picture him by the side of the freeway, and cars are just going past him like 80 miles an hour right now. He's pulled over somewhere to like do the show.
He is not at Mount Rushmore, that's for sure.
Well, these breweries are very nice. They really. They're very nice. I don't know. I hate to use. I don't know why. They're quite the brewery atmosphere as I've traveled north of Southern California is a lovely scene. They're just all friendly, man. It's just been fun. So that's what I'm going to run over to, who is cool. I went and checked it out real quick. It's partly why I was late. Hop Nation Brewing Company. I have no idea what they make. I'm guessing it's hoppy. I like that. I'm going to go check it out and eat some food. Try to find a taco, and I'll if I can find a taco.
Taco man. Sorry, that's what it sounds like to me. Taco man.
Well, maybe if I talk slower, it will speed up.
There you go. So what's your
All right, dude. I know you can't. I can't take it anymore. I know you can't take it anymore. And if there's 3 people left listening, they can't take it anymore. So, Eric, dude, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Give some final words. Final words, and we're out of here. From you, Eric. Final words.
Yeah, final words from me. Faultline this Saturday, July 30th at Underground SF. We have legendary Yano doing a 2-hour break set.
Yo.
Wait, hope to see you there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Talk to you soon.
Stay classy.
Stay classy, yo.
Yo.
Peace.